You're listening to At Its Roots, exploring America's commitment to childcare, a podcast docuseries uncovering the deep history, lived experiences, and policy shifts that continue to shape early childhood education in America. I'm Tessie Reagan, your host, an educator, family childcare owner, and advocate for our field. In each episode, we dig into the roots of the system, elevate the voice of those on the ground, and ask, what would it look like if America truly invested in childcare? Today's episode is titled Split Roots. We're starting at the beginning, uncovering how gender, race, labor, and the social expectations placed on women shaped the earliest forms of childcare in this country, and how those roots are still tangled in the systems we're navigating today. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on what was planted and how we can grow something stronger. When we think about the beginnings of childcare in America, we're often told it came out of necessity, need versus want, that it wasn't wanted, that women, especially white women, wanted to stay home with their children until school age, but were forced to find care when they couldn't. But that's not the truth. That's not the beginning. For someone like me who grew up in a family of educators, who was raised around women, ready to boss people around and teach the world right from wrong, it's a hard pill to swallow. Because I wanted to believe childcare came from a place of love, that it was always about meeting the needs of the community. But it can't be framed that way. Not when the history refuses to tell that version. Not when the earliest records show childcare tied to exploitation, to race, labor, and whose children deserved care in the first place. It's not that the truth is ugly. It's that the truth was never invited into the conversation. And that's where we begin. I come from a long line of educators and storytellers, but I also come from a long line of military folks, and that is not in my DNA. 4 years into the service and one baby later, I realized my calling wasn't books and barracks, it was books and babies. Education called me home. I planned to become a kindergarten teacher, boss around some 5-year-olds, decorate a bulletin board or two. But the deeper I got into my studies, the more I heard something over and over again. There's no good childcare near me. I can't afford it. I work nights. Nobody's open. That's when it hit me. Childcare isn't babysitting. It's education. And early education, the kind we all say we care about, starts in family homes just like mine. So I opened my doors. Let me take it back for a minute. My grandmother was a 4th grade teacher. She believed in education so deeply that she sent me to private religious school. I was the only Black child there. I could read and write at 4 years old, but I often played alone. And I'll never forget the nuns. That kind of racism, that isolation, it sprouts directly from the racism that early education was built on. Long before there were preschool center policies or public programs, Black women were doing the work. Enslaved women were forced to nurse, raise, and care for their enslavers' children, while their own were beaten, sold, or starved. This wasn't just labor. It was theft of love, of dignity, of legacy. These women planted the seeds of early care in this country, but they were never allowed to harvest the fruit. After slavery, we were free, but not really. Jim Crow laws made sure we still served others before ourselves. Black women weren't allowed the luxury of being stay-at-home mothers. We had to work, and not for our own families, but for someone else's. While white women were told their place was in the home caring for their children, Black women were denied that same right by law and by economy. The care that was often outsourced became a sign of status, proof that you were rich enough to pay someone else to raise your children, and funny enough, that hasn't changed. Women of color from all backgrounds fought the same fight, the right to choose their own families over families they were forced to serve, just to make a living. The snatching of women and children and the erasure of heritage didn't stop when the Civil War ended. It simply changed form. Being born a Black woman or a woman of color meant we entered the world with 2 strikes against us, our ethnicity and our gender. The The roots of childcare in this country weren't planted in unity. They were split by race, by gender, by labor. Women were expected to carry the full weight of the home, cooking, cleaning, child rearing without recognition or rest. But due to the laws of the land, we took care of other families while our own family suffered. And somehow we were blamed. It was seen as a moral failing, when in reality, it was the systems and laws that created that imbalance. The legacy still lives in the whispers. She's lazy. She's on welfare. Why won't she get a job? The women's rights movement marched right past us. While others demanded choice, we were still demanding survival. But even in all that injustice, we found power. Black women formed clubs, built schools, organized committees. The National Association of Colored Women's Clubs wasn't just a group. It was a movement that created safe spaces, educated children, lifted families. These women weren't waiting for permission. They were creating their own future, brick by brick. During World War II, while men went off to war, Black women held this country together. We worked in factories, then came home and cared for children, our own, our neighbors, our communities. This wasn't a new story. It was the same story, told in different uniforms. Family childcare didn't start in a center. It started in kitchens, on porches, under trees. We were educators, nutritionists, nurturers, and organizers long before there was a title for it. We were never just babysitters. We were builders of minds, of neighborhoods, of futures. Split roots don't just stay buried. They shape everything that grows from them. And if we want a stronger future for childcare, we have to understand what's underneath. Want to hear more stories and solutions? Please subscribe and follow. Next time, we'll dig into wartime policies, how they shaped the field, and how exclusion was deeply embedded in childcare history. I'm Tessie Reagan, and I hope you'll keep thinking about childcare at its roots.